Allow me to reintroduce
What's up,
myself.
everyone? I'd like to welcome everybody today to Supreme Decisions Legal Men Podcast. And today I want to talk about affidavits. And the reason why is because I have been running into a lot of people over the past few years that have been using affidavits when they're presenting their case in court. And they're wondering why they're not being answered, or they're getting upset and they're looking to file something else new to create something or see if they can get the result that they're looking for. But I want to go into exactly what an affidavit is and how it works, so that way if you do decide to use an affidavit, you understand what it entails and how to make it work the correct way. So first off, what an affidavit is, it's a written sworn statement of fact voluntarily made by an affiant or a deponent under an oath or affirmation administered by a person authorized to do so by law. Basically what this means is, let's say you have an incident. And a lot of times what we're talking about, we're having incidents with a police officer. So what we do is we go and write out this long statement of, every detail of the action, and we want to go and file that into court. But here's where it comes across as. Many of us leave off one thing with the signature, such as under penalty of perjury. We also leave off things such as jurat. And those things are important because even when a notary public signs off on the affidavit and we have it witnessed, we have it stamped and sealed and certified, why do they not answer? Or what is the reason behind them not answering? You have to understand that an affidavit is nothing more than testimony. Now, understanding an affidavit is testimony, it has to be supported at the time of filing with evidence of an action. This is why video is so important whenever you're dealing with people, whether it's police officers, whether it's a contract issue, no matter what it is, it's best if you have a record or some sort of evidence, because an affidavit filed without evidence, unsupported evidence, is going to fall under what they call hearsay. And under the rules of American jurisprudence, hearsay is admission of an unsupported affidavit as evidence as unusual with regard to material facts may be disposed of the matter at bar. Now, basically what it's called, when you're filing that affidavit, you need what they call corroborating evidence. So what happens is, whenever you're looking at the court setting, you also understand testimony. The biggest thing is, when you're talking about testimony, that is not the first part of a court or even a trial, because if you're not at trial, an affidavit with testimony has no issue, no bearing on the case. That is why a lot of times they are not answered, because it's like if you have a witness and you call the witness to the stand and then you don't cross-examine that witness. That does not make the witness any more or less credible. It just makes them a point of most of their testimony is not taken seriously, because there is no requirement for a cross-examination. because a lot of times there's no need because there is no evidence. So when doing these things, we have to take into account that, one, we have to have evidence, and we also have to understand one of the old sayings, which is the devil is in the details. Now, I have never issued an affidavit and filed it prior to any trial, simply because if you do it at the beginning, if it is answered, you're telling the opposition what your strategy is. Because again, that's where it comes from. The devil is in the details. Because only at trial, when someone is on the stand, does anybody care about the details. When you are setting up a court case, you have to do it in a manner to which they have to do something. And most of the time, just filing an affidavit with unsupported evidence is not the way to do it. And then getting mad, oh, they're not responding, means shit. So understanding the fact that if you're going to file an affidavit, it has to be supported with actual evidence. But also understand that it means nothing until trial. But you have to get to the point of a trial, because there are a lot of steps prior to a trial even being set up, or even a determination for a trial. Because prior to that, the affidavit is just hearsay. So now, one of the things you do as a evidence gathering method is called a deposition. And it's basically where you sit down across from the person that you are looking to go into court or trial with and ask them a series of questions that deal with the legal issue that's before you. If it's a contract, you ask them questions that deal with the specifics of that contract. If it is a traffic citation, you deal with their oath of office, you deal with their fiduciary duty, and you deal with the actual constitutional law that applies to that citation. And you ask those questions, because then that deposition serves as evidence for your affidavit. Now, there are a lot of times that you're going to come across, and hopefully you'll be able to look at different things and be able to examine them as for what they are. Because even with hearsay, you're looking at something, let's say that you hear these things called a dying declaration. Well, a dying declaration itself is, in a sense, an affidavit, because it is testimony that's technically unsupported by evidence, which a lot of times they use what they call circumstantial evidence, or certain things such as behavioral evidence. And they use that to support the dying declaration. Even with dealing with court issues, you're looking at the manners of your declaration being something that you can easily apply. But generally, when you're dealing with those types of issues, an affidavit works best in a civil matter versus a criminal matter. Because if you're issuing affidavits in a criminal matter, again, you're giving the opposition your hand. It's like playing spades and everybody got their cards turned towards them and you have yours facing towards the board. So you don't want to give your strategy away. But what you want to do is make sure you outline the cause. You want to deal with the effect, how it was violated, what their duties are. You want to also use the Supreme Court cases or the cases that are in your district that were heard. And you also at times want to use their statutes. And great places for that would be the organic code of your state, or even the court cases that have been heard in your state. Okay, one of the things I want to do now is to give you the simple effects of what to do and when to do certain things. Now, if you're having an issue, let's say that you get stopped by the police for, a broken tail light. The easy is go ahead, accept the ticket, sign it the correct way, which would be, by force of arms, which be et armis. Then you take that ticket or citation and you go down to the courthouse or to the police station and you look up the officer who wrote that ticket. You then get a copy of that officer's police report because, again, the ticket itself shows that there was an interaction. 2, the police report will give you the officer's affidavit or oath or affirmation of that incident. So that works as evidence if you're going to use your affidavit, because it's going to actually either support or refute that the police officer's account of what happened. You then go down, because you'll have the officer's full name, you go down to the section and ask who's responsible for the oaths, who's responsible for looking out for the oaths of office, and you get a copy of that officer's oath of office. You then leave out if there is a insurance bond that is with that officer, because your particular county requires that they have them. Then you will go down to what your town, city, or whatever refers to as risk management. And you can ask down at the police station, where's risk management located for the insurance bonds of the police officers? And you can ask in that simple, plain voice. Then once that happens, you have 3 supporting documents actually, if there's an insurance bond, for your affidavit. Then you place all that together, and then you go and you either write out a formal complaint, which would be addressed in court, not sent to the watch commander or any of that other crap. You actually do it in front of a judge with the oath of office as evidence to support their fiduciary duty, which was violated if there was not an actual crime that you were being accused of. Now we go into the matter of what goes on your affidavit. I am one that, again, I like to keep a lot of what I'm doing as simple as possible. If I give accounts of an incident, say I was stopped, the first thing I'm going to put in my affidavit is the fact that as I was traveling, officer whatever employed emergency measures and proceeded to conduct a Fourth Amendment stop. His articulation did not express an actual crime, thus making the stop or detention illegal. Because in order for them to be there, they have to have a reason. In order for them to have a reason, there has to be a crime. If there is not a crime and they're stopping your locomotion, it is a Fourth Amendment violation. Now, understanding the simple fact is, when you're doing these things, you have to do them in a proper manner. But they also have a duty to work towards your benefit. This is what is in that oath of office. This is what they've signed. This is what they swore to. And this is also the thing they signed up for. So understanding the premise of what it takes when you're filing these affidavits, because the biggest part of it is they still do not have to answer you prior to trial. Now, what I'm going to do real quick is understanding you have that as your foundation for when you're filing an affidavit. Understanding they don't have to answer you prior to trial, because that is what a affidavit is. It's testimony. It's your testimony. It's your sworn testimony. Now, and also understand when you're filing it, you have to have evidence. Now, I'm going to go into something that may or may not have anything to do with a lot of this stuff, but I was asked maybe 3 days ago, why did I stop helping people and with their cases and doing all the fighting or whatever? Well, one of the things I came up with was the fact that most people that I dealt with was looking for something for nothing. And I want to give you the whole gist of what this entails. Anytime you're doing a case, it doesn't matter what the case is. If you are looking for a good job, if you want somebody to do something well, you have to pay them for their service. You have to pay them for their time. Now, the average case, just simple cases, they require at least 100 hours. Now, if you think about a work hour or work week, it's generally 40 hours. So we're looking at any one case that you will deal with. You will be looking at least 2.5 weeks worth of work on that one issue. That is bare minimum. And that is actual real-time work. So whether it's going to get documents, whether it's going to file documents, whether it's preparing documents, whether it's going to get evidence, whether it's requesting other things, whether it's going to multiple hearings, all those are in part of that 100 hours for that one case. So I'm going to break it down to the ridiculous. Now, people would ask me to help them with, a multitude of cases ranging from traffic citations to losing their house to setting up lawsuits. And I did it a lot of times, just because at the time I enjoyed it. But what I found out is what I'm getting ready to tell you now. If you look at minimum wage, and we call it, let's say $8 an hour. Most people go to work, they earn more than $8 an hour. Most. Not all, but most. Now, you go to work, and I just told you, you got to work a minimum of 100 hours. Minimum wage for something that is going to take 2.5 weeks is $800, because you're looking at $320 per week. And then you have the $160 because you're only working a half week on the last portion of it. So $800 on any one case. Most people did not want to respect my time in doing that, because even people that I help now, I do it because I don't expect anything, and I don't help everybody. But the simple fact is the understanding that you're asking someone to spend 100 hours of their life to help support and help defend your freedoms, help support and help defend your liberties, help support and defend your livelihood. But you don't feel they should be compensated when you would not go to your job and work for free, put in 100 hours and not expect some sort of compensation. Now, the reason I said that, because even when you go into help doing your own case, you are going to have to spend money to file fees. You're going to have to spend money to get documents. You're going to have to spend money to set up court hearings, because that is just the nature of the beast. But if you're not going to pay someone that actually knows how to do it, how to help you to get through these, or you want to pay them $100, which is $1 an hour, you have to expect that that is exactly what you're going to have to do. And are you going to be worth that $1 an hour that you were going to pay somebody else to do 100 hours worth of work? Or are you ready and willing to put in 100 hours to defend yourself? The sad thing is, most people are not on either count. That's why you look at a court system or a justice system that has 95% of all cases never making it to a judge. And then the 5% that do, over 70% of them win their case, because you're looking at people that are quote unquote prosecuting and not going into court. They do not understand how to do things in a proper manner. Why? Because they've been doing it wrong for so long. They're used to making deals. They are not used to supporting themselves or defending their positions whenever they're dealing with someone. So understanding that you have a better chance of going into court, actually setting up a trial, than you do with making a deal or getting your case dismissed. So how do you do the greater things? As we go along, I'm going to explain documents that need to be filed to start a case. I'm going to explain every step of the process, so that way you won't be going into these cases when you choose to do your 100 hours for yourself, or when you choose to write your own affidavit, and then you have to find evidence to then corroborate and support your affidavit. When you go back and you have a full understanding of what it is that you are doing and how to do it. Now, I love doing this. I love actually giving out the knowledge that I have and from the experiences that I have. I've done it wrong enough, and I've done it right more often than not enough to be able to direct you and guide you in the way you need to go. But the whole fact is, you have to be willing to go through this. And I do mean through it, because even if it is a simple case, you have to understand you are still looking at least 100 hours. So there's no need in getting frustrated if you don't, the first time out, you don't get it dismissed, because maybe there was something that you missed. Now, as we go on, again, I'm going to help you build that sniper-like mentality for, we're going to go in, I'm not going to be going to court a whole bunch of times, and I'm going to get this over with. But until you are able to get to that point, we have to go through all the steps, because you have to go step by step. Or as my boy used to say, line by line, precept by precept. And we have to do it the right way. So this is where I'm going to conclude this week. I appreciate everyone. I apologize for not getting it out on time. Had a little issue with the update and getting everything together, but we're also going to go every Monday. I appreciate all my donors. Continue to donate. Continue to help the channel, YouTube channel, Supreme Decisions. Continue to support the podcast, Supreme Decisions, Legal Minute. And let's keep growing and make this something that is uber special. So until next time.